the expectation is like you're going to continuously improve and optimize the website. But like, yeah, the journey of CRO is like a lot of losses and a couple big wins and then losses. Like it, obviously you're going to go through that path. There's no such thing as best practices. So we're kind of making decisions off the data we see and observe for the client. And losses, if you think about it, are pretty good because if we didn't run it through an A/B test, like so I've seen a lot of clients just make decisions based on certain biases or what they think, and they never test it, so they never know exactly whether if it did have a negative impact, unless it has a dramatic one that they can see obviously. But yeah, sometimes it's not about the obvious negative impacts. There could be like a drop, which over time is going to lead to a huge loss of revenue for the business. So I think getting that habit to A/B test, whether you win or you lose, is the right way to think about it. It's not about the final outcome so much. It's more like having that muscle in the business to keep testing, especially as you get to scale. Like I understand for a small business, it doesn't probably make sense to be running. A lot of people who run smaller businesses are not going to run A/B tests, but yeah, as you get larger and larger, like every decision matters, and yeah, you should definitely be running like A/B tests.
Welcome to another episode of the CRO Wizards series by VWO podcast. In this series, we speak to top CRO leaders in e-commerce, media, subscription, retail, banking, and other industries about CRO strategies and the positive impact they can have on your business. Before we speak to our special guest for this episode, here's a quick summary of who we are and what we do. VWO is a leading experience optimization platform. Using our latest product, VWO Insights, you can analyze user journeys and identify conversion roadblocks on your website and mobile app. So without any further delay, let's jump right into the conversation.
Hello, all listeners and viewers. Welcome to another exciting episode of CRO Wizards by VWO podcast. Today, we are excited to introduce our guest, Marty Youssef. Marty is the director of Internet Goods, where he and his team specialize in designing stunning websites in Figma and developing them in Webflow. Their work is all about boosting your brand's online presence and converting more visitors. As a seasoned CRO specialist, Marty has collaborated with numerous remarkable B2C brands and operators over the past few years. He expertly manages monthly CRO workflows, covering everything from research and planning to execution. Join us as we dive into Marty's insights and strategies for optimizing conversion rates and enhancing online performance. Hi, Marty. Welcome to CRO Wizards series by VW podcast. How's the week going for you?
Great. Thanks for having me, Sid. Yeah, it's been a great week for me. Busy as usual, but yeah, it's been rewarding. Looking forward to the weekend, but yeah, it's been great.
Great. Thank you so much for your time today, and it's a pleasure having you on the show. So before we get started, I just wanted to understand, what do you love most about working in the CRO industry?
Yeah, I think one of the big things I enjoy is obviously collaborating with the clients to kind of educate them sometimes about CRO. So a lot of clients hear the word CRO, but they don't actually understand the kind of workflows and strategies required. So I think for me, like one of the most rewarding thing is kind of introducing that to them, to their business, and kind of seeing them get excited when we do have quick wins or we start heading in the right direction in terms of improving their website and optimizing it. I think, yeah, that's probably the most rewarding thing for me, working with operators.
Yeah, because I believe CRO is still in its nascent stages, right? So the awareness of CRO is still very less in the market. So I believe this is the right opportunity for all the CRO experts to help brands, help them convert more visitors, so that more brands and more businesses get to know what CRO actually is and how it can improve their businesses.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as advertising costs start to rise on platforms like Meta and Google, people are looking at ways to improve conversion rates, improve their site to convert more customers, obviously reducing that cost of acquisition using that lever. So I see a lot of clients in the e-com space definitely kind of prioritizing CRO now more and more, especially in this type of economic climate, as a way, to kind of reduce that burn for themselves.
Totally. So, Marty, can you tell us a bit about your journey and how you got started in the world of conversion rate optimization?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually graduated university around 2014. And out of uni, I ended up working for EY, so one of the big four auditing firms. So I studied accounting at university, so kind of numbers driven. But yeah, I spent 2 years at EY, and I realized over that time, accounting probably wasn't for me, and auditing wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. I did love business in general, but yeah, still wasn't sure what I was going to do. So after 2 years at EY, I actually went back to help my parents with their own small business, and they're in the student accommodation business here in Australia. And yeah, when I joined them, they weren't very digital. Like the business obviously had a website, but they haven't optimized it. They were running some ads, but they needed help with a lot of that. And so that's where I dipped my toes first to kind of play around and figure out, how to set up a website on WordPress. I started with bits and pieces like that. And I kind of fell in love with like the digital side. And yeah, through that kind of taught myself how to do a little bit of coding and design, things like that. And so after that, I spent about 4 years with them and kind of helped them grow their advertising part of the business and the website. After that, I joined a startup here in Australia called Eucalyptus, and they run multiple brands under the holding company, and they're in the telehealth space. So selling health products, health services as well online, and they're kind of pioneering this in Australia.
Right.
And during my time there, I slowly gravitated towards CRO. And at that time, I kind of got given that title, but I had no idea really like what it was, and kind of had to try to figure it out a little bit by myself. And we had multiple websites under the one arm of the business. And so I was kind of given the responsibility to run experiments and kind of build landing pages for the different websites. And so that's where I kind of cut my teeth on CRO, landing page experiments. Back then, we were using Google Optimize. So kind of taught myself how to use it. And the websites were built on Webflow at that time. And Webflow was kind of new at that time as well. So got my head around that. So kind of, was dabbling in testing and landing page experimentation there. And since then, I've been consulting with a number of both software companies, so SaaS businesses, and more now e-commerce businesses, Shopify stores as well.
That's an inspiring journey. So basically, the first time you started testing was from Eucalyptus, is it?
Yeah, that's when I started to get more serious. So before that, it was more general digital marketing,
Right.
but went down more the CRO path. Yeah, at Eucalyptus. From there, have been doing more and more landing pages and working, obviously across the digital marketing funnel, but specializing in CRO more and more.
Okay, that's an inspiring story. And since you have grown from the start, right, from learning first digital and then getting interested in CRO, Webflow, creating websites and all of that. So could you share a success story from your experience where a specific CRO experiment led to a remarkable improvement in the brand's performance?
Yeah, so it kind of highlights that you don't really need those massive swings or like revolutionizing everything. It's like very incremental. I think CRO the way it should be approached. Recently, I was working with an apparel brand which had multiple SKUs, so it was had a lot of different products available. And when I joined them, I kind of sat through some session recordings, and I was watching how people were interacting with the website. And I think that part in the CRO journey is really important. Sometimes overlooked. People want to kind of introduce best practices immediately, but I think a lot of CRO is kind of spending that time looking at the data, analytics tools, looking at heat map tools. Like I use Microsoft Clarity a lot
Right.
for looking at that. And just kind of watching how customers use the website. And so I spent quite a lot of time with one of my customers who were in the apparel space. And what we noticed was a lot of the clients would use the collections page to kind of scroll through, browse different products, because this client has like hundreds of, maybe even thousands of different SKUs. And customers would go back and forth between the collection page and the product page. And the default selection of the collection page was kind of all over the place. But we realized that only a handful of products were the best sellers for that store. And so, kind of me identifying that, all we had to do was run a test where we just showed the best sellers first on the collections page, because we knew a lot of people were using that as a landing page and kind of moving towards the product pages. And so we ran that for 2 weeks, and the results were crazy just by changing from default to best sellers first. I think we saw like a 35% increase in like revenue per site visitor. And for these guys, it was in the six-figure range, incremental estimated improvement in their monthly revenue. So yeah, that's just a small example of how like that didn't take us long to change and optimize, but it's just having someone there like a CRO expert or kind of always looking at your website and twiggling things and kind of improving things, especially at scale. Obviously, it doesn't make as much sense when you're a smaller store or site, but yeah, if you're at a good scale, you should definitely have this process. And I'm sure we'll talk about it more in the podcast, but having this kind of practice of continuously looking at session recordings and interviewing customers and understanding, because yeah, your website should always be evolving. This is how I look at it.
And I totally agree that, you don't need really major revamps or changes to sometimes drive improvement. It could be a very small change because as business owners, we might feel that a small change might not do wonders, but for users, these minor changes kind of help them improve their product discovery and reduce those friction points and can get those incremental results that you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. I think everyone reverts usually to big changes or big shifts, but just like like a business, it takes years, and there's just incremental changes and bits and pieces that you do introduce or test with that kind of lead to big results over time.
Totally, totally agree. So, Marty, what future trends do you see in web design and development that might influence the way you use tools like Figma and Webflow to create high converting websites?
Yeah, I think well the buzzword at the moment, as you know, is probably like AI. So
Yeah,
um, AI is obviously changing a lot of industries, and I think it will definitely change like our industry, the digital marketing industry as a whole, and web development is probably changing as well. I think the workflow from wireframe to design to development, there's quite a few moving pieces in that, and at the moment you still have to go from like a wireframe that you send to a designer that works in Figma, and then from Figma to your your website builder like Webflow for kind of web marketing sites, but for e-com sites that use tools like Replo, there's a new one called Instant for Shopify sites as well. And so, yeah, there's that kind of workflow at the moment. I think what is changing is how can we move quicker from design, so from Figma, moving it quickly into a website builder and then running those experiments and tests on that. I
right.
think, yeah, there's a bit of a shift happening there, and there's a demand growing, especially with AI coming into the picture now, for people to move quicker through that workflow. I know some tools like Replo and Instant for Shopify starting to introduce Figma straight into Shopify, for example, and that's really interesting. And I've been observing that. But yeah, I think that move is going to be that workflow improvement with introduction of AI and more automation is going to be pretty handy for CRO experts and operators themselves who are owning the businesses, because that kind of cycle of testing is going to just hopefully increase more, and you can focus less on the actual building and more on the testing front of things when you can have templates ready really quickly. And then obviously with VWO or whatever experiment tool they're using, they can run experiments fast.
Totally. I believe implementation of AI within such tools has really added a lot of value in the entire CRO process, because there are tools that are basically now using AI to give ideas, basically analyze your web page and give you certain ideas that you can test. Heat maps implemented with AI helps you understand which part of the website is basically being more clicked, and based on you get AI based recommendations and what are the changes that you can make. So I believe it's making life much more simpler for CRO experts and even business owners who are trying to do CRO on their website.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've said it to a few people, and I think I put it on Twitter. Like, I think yeah, that CRO workflow is definitely going to get enhanced a lot with AI, and I hope there's a tool. Hopefully, it's through VWO or some kind of workflow tool for CRO experts, where you can kind of bring all the different pieces of data and make really good decisions around like road mapping and prioritizing experiments. At the moment, it requires a bit of work around that, but if we can kind of use AI or some tool to kind of bring all that data together and make really sound and good decisions around what to experiment and the expected outcomes, that will be like really helpful.
Beyond CRO, you have also led various marketing initiatives. So, how do you integrate CRO with broader marketing strategies to ensure holistic growth for a brand?
Yeah, that's really interesting. There's different channels in terms of acquiring customers that a business might incorporate. So you can go to obviously channels like Google, where there's high intent users coming through. They're searching for a keyword, they're searching for a solution to a problem. Then you might have channels like Facebook, which is obviously colder audiences. So they need to be educated about your product more. Then you might do PR, you might do kind of the branding side of things as well. Obviously, SEO is there on the Google side. But you have all these different channels all feeding back into your brand, coming to your site, right? And I think, yeah, if you think about CRO is like optimizing your site, which is like the towards the end of that journey for the customer. Yeah, you kind of have to think about CRO in terms of that's how I think about it. So how does it help that funnel for each of those different funnels, right? And I think a lot of operators or earlier operators who haven't done digital marketing or don't really understand, they think more singular, like everyone, like, this is my site and I'm acquiring customers, but the customers you get from each of those channels are so different, and there's no universal like conversion rate. Conversion rate obviously varies a lot from different factors, and especially in these channels. So Google is probably going to have a higher conversion rate, the type of customers coming through there versus Facebook, and obviously versus direct to your website. And so the way I look at CRO in that sense is working in those funnels. So if, for example, a lot of my clients are in the e-commerce space and they're acquiring a lot of the customers from Facebook, you need to think about that journey separate to say the other channels there. Yeah, if we look at Facebook as an example there, it's building out that funnel from a Facebook ad when they see you. It's a very cold audience. They want to, they're going to need some more education around your product to kind of understand who your brand is, like the features and the benefits of your product. So with a lot of my customers there, from a kind of more landing page point of view, we might introduce like a sales page. So that could be like a listicle or an advertorial or something to educate them about our brand, kind of tell them about our benefits, and then slowly bring them to the product page. And then they can make a decision there whether they buy or not. Thinking about the full funnel, and as you said, like integrating it into your overall marketing plan. I think CRO can sometimes be like siloed as like, oh, you have a team only looking after your website, and then you have the ad buyers, you might have the brand marketers there. But I think having those different divisions within your marketing team kind of communicate more, understanding what CRO is doing a little bit. So having that cross, team collaboration is really important, because I work with a lot of clients who might get an agency for ad buying and then might have us for CRO, but it's kind of really important for both of us to talk to each other more often, because we might be running post-purchase surveys that have really good, valuable information that can help creative for Facebook ads, or can kind of have an impact on things further up in the funnel. I think communication's key there. And as I said, like thinking about each channel or each of those marketing channels kind of individually is really important.
Strongly agree to the point wherein you said, the behavior of visitors coming from these different platforms, varies, right? From
Yeah.
Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. So I believe it has to be a mix of both personalization and testing as well. First, you need to have a, tailor-made landing page for all these visitors coming from different sources, right? A personalized landing page. And then A/B testing also helps us test those landing pages as to which is actually performing better, right? So
Yeah.
this we are able to, leverage both personalization and testing to ensure that the content of that landing page syncs with the behavior of the visitors coming from a specific source.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point to drill down on with a lot of, like, I see a lot of people do this wrong. There has to be a congruency. So there has to be like a connection between your ad and the landing page. So a lot of clients will run like different creatives, so different ad angles, different USP angles to like a generic landing page. And that doesn't make sense. Like you need to, whatever you're selling at the top of funnel, that, unique selling point has to kind of match to the landing page, and the landing page has to go into more detail about that selling point, and kind of handle any objections they might have around that. So like it's something that you got to like, I have to drill down with a lot of customers and clients, is that kind of matching between the ad or that channel and the landing page, and thinking about who that user is, like kind of putting yourself in those shoes. It sounds very like, textbook, but like, yeah, it's really important to think about it in that sense.
So, Marty, can you share your insights on the importance of an iterative experimentation process in CRO? Because how brands effectively balance between immediate wins and long-term optimization.
I think that comes down to having a really sound like roadmap. I mean, there's thousands of tests you can run, and as a CRO, like when you come to a new client, you might audit their site and you'll see a heap of opportunities. But even it's something I'm learning myself, still running CRO and having different clients in different industries. It's kind of obviously figuring out what's going to have the biggest impact, having like a bit of like an ICE framework or some framework that works for you to identify, what's going to have a big impact, what's going to be easy to implement. So I think that's really important for making sure that it will, like, you want to have a good quick win for the client, but you got to balance that with you might have losses, but you got to keep iterating and keep moving through. But I think the way to mitigate that is by doing the research up front. And that's why it is bad if a CRO agency is coming and giving you like best practices. I don't think there's anything called best practices. I've seen so many of the ones I've implemented fail for some clients and succeed a lot for other clients. So I think it's a matter of kind of doing as much research up front that will then feed into your roadmap for tests and kind of influence which tests get prioritized. Also speaking to stakeholders in the business, the founders, the marketing team, seeing like what's a priority for them coming up. Could be a seasonal sale, could be something along those lines that are really important. So you got to prioritize tests around if it's Black Friday coming up, things like that. You can't be like misaligned with the rest of the company. I know it sounds obvious, but there might be poor communication. Things might get missed, and then feeding that into your decisions in terms of what you're going to test.
I really like the point where you said that it's not that one thing that works for everyone.
Yeah.
Right? Because even I've seen that a sticky add to cart, which is a very basic test, works wonders for certain websites, but it doesn't really work at all for certain brands, right? Because every brand is built differently. Every brand has a different value proposition, different things to offer, right? So the user journey varies for every specific website. And I believe, as you said, it's not about the best practices, it's about having those data-backed ideas, doing your research right, and then coming up with tailor-made ideas that can be tested for that specific website rather than just going with industry standard best practices.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think it's obviously lazy to solely rely on best practices, and like CRO is really not that difficult at the crux of it. Like it's just psychology. Essentially, it's like understanding who's on the other side, which is the client and the customer, the visitor to the website, and kind of observing how they operate, how they think, and then making logical decisions around that, introducing things to the website, introducing messages at the right times. It's kind of very intuitive, right? If you do the research and kind of observe, do interviews, like I love customer interviews, but most customers kind of quickly want to run and be like, no, let's just implement. You're the expert. I'm like, but interviews is like part of the process. And just sitting and talking with the customer is going to give you so much value and so much knowledge to make really good decisions. But yeah, everyone, we live in a practical world and everyone wants to move really quickly, but taking like a step back and kind of absorbing what the customer says is just so valuable.
So, Marty, how do you foster a collaborative environment among developers, designers, and marketing teams to ensure the success of these CRO initiatives?
Yeah, this is a really good point, especially for someone like myself who kind of runs a CRO agency. People think like you might hire like a CRO expert and they can do everything. And that's like so far from the truth, because I think CRO is like a very multi-team kind of practice, right? So as you said, like you're going to need a CRO expert or strategist. And that's how I define myself. It's more like doing the research, coming up with the ideas, formulating them, and then collaborating with a designer so we can kind of illustrate that and visualize it, bring it to life, and then getting the developer to implement. And then I come back at the end of that to then run the test, like observe it and kind of report back like what the results are and interpret the results essentially. So that's a bit of the workflow. And in terms of communication, yeah, it's very key if there are these different people in this kind of journey. And the way I do it in a practical sense, like with customers at the moment, is yeah, we have like a Notion board. So I use Notion quite a bit for my project management. And in that board, we have a bit of a roadmap and we prioritize it as I said, using some sort of like a nice framework. Sometimes it varies between clients, depends on how they want to do it. And yeah, and then through that board, we move things that are prioritized into a design sprint. So the designers will then work on it. We get the stakeholders in the business, such as like the management team, to kind of review it and give us the okay. And then the development team will then pick it up, implement it, and then I'll help set it up in a tool like VWO, and then we'll run it. And while something's running, we're getting ready for the next experiment to come through as well. So it's like a continuous kind of factory or like a machine running, essentially. That's kind of the way we keep it going. So everyone kind of knows what they're doing, and we have like one board that we share between different teams and functions to kind of keep things running.
I believe that I've seen businesses struggle wherein they either lack a developer or they either lack a designer in their team.
Yeah.
Let's come to designs. They don't have probably somebody to design certain changes, and if they are trying to test something complex, they don't have that dedicated developer who can write that piece of code for them to make those changes right. I've seen these teams who have these board designers and developers working in sync with CRO strategists are the most consistent ones in terms of running tests, and also comparatively much more successful as compared to the ones that don't have these in the team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's important to have like A players in each of these positions, making sure like when I join, if I'm starting with a new client, I want to make sure that they either have like good developers in place or I can recommend them and good designers, because yeah, my role, like I'm very dependent on a designer and a developer to get to the final experiment product, for example. It's really important to have that team working together in sync.
CRO is all about, winners and failures. So how do you approach and learn from failed experiments to ensure continuous improvement in CRO efforts?
I know everyone has this view that like they want to, especially if you're an agency or an expert coming in, like the expectation is like you're gonna continuously improve and optimize the website. But like, yeah, the journey of CRO is like a lot of losses and a couple big wins and then losses. Like it, obviously you're gonna go through that path. There's no such thing as best practices. So we're kind of making decisions off the data we see and observe for the client. And losses, if you think about it, are pretty good because if we didn't run it through an A/B test, like so I've seen a lot of clients just make decisions based on certain biases or what they think, and they never test it, so they never know exactly whether it did have a negative impact, unless it has a dramatic one that they can see obviously. But yeah, sometimes it's not about the obvious negative impacts. There could be like a drop, which over time is going to lead to a huge loss of revenue for the business. So I think getting that habit to A/B test, whether you win or you lose, is the right way to think about it. It's not about the final outcome so much. It's more like having that muscle in the business to keep testing, especially as you get to scale. Like I understand for a small business, it doesn't probably make sense to be running. A lot of people who run smaller businesses are not going to run A/B tests, but yeah, as you get larger and larger, like every decision matters, and yeah, you should definitely be running like A/B tests.
I believe that businesses should understand that there's a reason this is called experimentation, because it basically means you experiment something and you might have a winner or you might have a failure. So
Exactly.
that approach of just seeking for winners every single time does not really work, because if you get winners, it's great, you have learned something. But if you have failed campaigns, that's more like a learning as to why
Exactly.
certain things did not work and how can you make it work better, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
sometimes you need to fail a few times. It's like life. So sometimes you have to fail before you can, like, crawl before you walk kind of thing. So like it's the same thing when you're getting like a system up and running or like an experiment process. Like you're gonna have a couple failures, but as long as you learn from them and understand the crux, like the reason why that happened or potentially happened, and make further inferences off that, then you're gonna be fine. Like it's like all part of the journey essentially. But yeah, it's like if you are doing experiments and it continuously fails and you're not looking further into the data or asking the right questions, then that's when it can go off the rails and like you're not doing your job correctly.
and even one more point that you said, that sometimes even I've faced the scenarios wherein as CRO experts I have presented ideas And that idea sounded so great to the business that they said, okay, I don't just want to test it, I just implement this directly on the website, right? And
Yeah,
this could actually backfire as well, because you do not know how. It's just your assumption or an hypothesis that, okay, doing this specific change will improve my engagement or it will improve my conversion by certain percentage.
yeah,
But unless and until we don't do a test, we don't actually understand its performance, right? Rather,
100%.
without just testing, you're implementing it directly on the website, and you never know, it might actually leading to, your conversions going down, right?
I think every CRO has gone through that experience with, especially if you're working directly with like a founder
Hmm.
or some, the person running the business. Like they're very practical. Obviously, they have CRO just one problem in their day. Like they have multiple problems, and
Right.
so they have more of a practical view, which I totally understand. But yeah, I agree with you. And I said again, like at a certain scale, like early on, you can make these quicker decisions. They're probably not going to impact you as much as you're getting to scale. But when
True.
you start becoming more of an established business, yeah, I think you can't have those habits anymore, and you got to start introducing more of like an experiment mindset to everything you introduce, because your business is working, and any introduction of something foreign or new is going to have a certain impact. And so, yeah, I think A/B testing makes sense then.
Marty, with your expertise in designing and developing websites that enhance the brand presence and conversion rates, what key elements do you believe are often overlooked by businesses when creating their online platforms?
Yeah, I think like if I take a step back, like I see a problem every time I kind of look at a client or like a website. And I see this a lot with SaaS businesses. They use a lot of jargon, right? So it's not so much design or development, but more so the copywriting. And I think copywriting is like one of the most important skills in digital marketing. Like it's the
Correct.
best. Like if you're good at that, you'll win. You're gonna most likely do well. It doesn't matter the design or how things look, but if you can convey what your product does in solving a client's problem, then unlocks a lot of the barriers. And so the big thing I see is, yeah, not clearly articulating like what your product actually does and what it solves. So that kind of connection between problem solution, and having that with along that landing page you have there. So in the hero section, which is above the fold, you have to quickly articulate what you solve for the client, what problem you address essentially. And I feel like a lot of people don't look at it. They look at the design and they want to make a pretty website or a pretty landing page, but they don't take that step. And I did this as well early on as well. You think, oh, website, like I need to make it look beautiful and all the bells and whistles, but it's about getting like a single page and like seeing that customer in your head and then writing and structuring that page to kind of introduce them and kind of identify the problem that they have, and then obviously explain how you solve it or your product solves it, and then handling any objections they have around price, quality, deliverability. So there's like a formula to landing pages that a lot of people, a lot of landing pages I read, I think they're junk and they don't address these clearly, and they have fancy like designs and everything, but I don't actually know what you guys do or solve for me. So that's why I bounce and I leave. So I think everything revolves around copy, and I forget about design first, and then we bring that layer of design on top. Yeah, so I don't know if hopefully that addressed this question, but it was something I wanted to point out. Like it's really important.
No,
Um,
definitely. I
yeah,
agree with when you said that everything revolves around copy, because it's not just about making pretty websites, it's also conveying your message right.
correct.
And I've seen that when we have made just minor copy changes, and that has done wonders in terms of improving the engagement or in terms of navigating users from a specific part of the website to a specific part. So
Yeah,
as you said, content, the copywriting is a skill, and this is something that every CRO expert should master as well, because these minute copy changes can actually do wonders for your website in terms of improving, the conversions.
yeah, it's like so important because I think CRO or like optimization has two elements: the UX, so the design and structure,
Right.
and the buttons and images and visuals and all that. But then there's the messaging part, which is also really important. Everyone talks about the buzzwords like UX and all that, but yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's like we've brought everything online. But back in the day, we had shops, right? When we sold through shops, we had a salesperson. They kind of articulated all this to the client while they're walking through the store. And it's like, how do we have that kind of same experience, but on a digital, like on a single page? So you kind of got to have those elements there to kind of speak to them at certain points, make them like understand the product, kind of articulate the key features and the benefits, and then let them make a decision off the back of that.
So, on a lighter note, Marty, what's your favorite way to unwind after a long day?
I'm a big sports fan and I love basketball. So like I'm an NBA like addict. So yeah, I usually go down to the local park and I shoot some hoops. So that's like my kind of meditation there. Like, so if I'm playing by myself or playing a pickup game, yeah, I'm a big basketball fan.
That's great. So, Marty, we'll just move to the last part of the podcast. So, I have a set of questions for you. This is a rapid fire round. So, I have a set of questions and you can probably share your 2 cents, right?
Sure.
Great. So, if you were starting a career in CRO today, what is that one thing that you would do differently?
Oh, this is a good question. What would I do differently? I would reach out to more people who are already in the industry. I think that's like pretty obvious, but I'm sure I'm an introvert by nature, but I find like you learn faster by just reaching out to people who've done it before and kind of picking their brain.
Very true. Newsletter that every CRO professional must follow?
Oh, I'm not a massive newsletter reader, so I might have to pass. Like, yeah, I should be reading more, but I don't.
Any books that you would recommend to our listeners?
Again, I haven't been reading that much around the CRO or marketing space.
Anything in terms of businesses, fiction, non-fiction, anything goes.
Yeah. I haven't read in a while. I'm not gonna lie. Like I've been so busy working. Do you have any recommendations I should read?
I think 0 to 1 is what I believe by Peter Thiel. I think that is one of the best books I've read for somebody who wants to start a business, right?
Yeah, nice.
If you are already in that space, I believe you would be able to relate more to it in terms of how you move from that 0 to 1 stage. So probably if you ever get a chance, you should, read it.
Okay, I'll tell you one book I read kind of recently now that I think about it. It's called The Boron Letters. It's a Boron, and it's by, I think his name's Gary. I forgot his last name. But he's like a direct response marketer, and if you want to learn about copywriting, like I think his book was like really great. Kind of covers a lot of the concepts I was talking about before about the importance of copywriting and especially on landing pages. So yeah. That was one book I read a little while ago that I thought was really good.
All right. What's your go-to travel destination in Australia?
In Australia, I went like it was 2 years ago to the Whitsundays, so up in Queensland, which is like where the Great Barrier Reef is. And yeah, if you're coming to Australia, like definitely recommend going up there. It was so beautiful. And lived up to all the expectations for me.
Totally. One thing that AI will replace in the next 3 years?
In the next 3 years, good question. I think we talked about like that process from design to development, and I think that's getting really close now. And I know like Figma is introducing AI. I know all the website builders are introducing AI as well. So yeah, I think somewhere like that's going to start rapidly evolving.
All right. If not a CRO specialist, what other profession would you have chosen?
Well, I started in accounting, and I always wanted to get into finance, like investment banking. So I wonder if I followed that path, whether I would have ended up in that space. So yeah, maybe something in finance, investing.
All right. One CRO metric that you wish people would stop obsessing over?
Yeah, conversion rate, definitely. Like the actual concept of conversion rate, especially Shopify owners. So they look at, it's really annoying that Shopify introduced that conversion rate metric inside the dashboard. And I know a lot of them look at that and I'm like, there's no such thing as a sole conversion rate, because as we talked about in this session, in the podcast, there's different channels. So like you need to look at a channel specific conversion rate. And that's just one way to look at it. You can also look throughout the year. It's going to change a lot depending on the season, especially in e-commerce. So yeah, I think I'm sure a lot of CROs have talked about that, but I think, yeah, it's the most obvious.
All right. The last one, a dream or goal you want to achieve in the next 3 years.
Yeah, I'm setting up my agency and it's been about a year and a half now. I want to keep growing that. I have Internet Goods, which
Hmm.
is one agency I run, which is more the Webflow agency, and I have another one called Unlock, which is
Okay.
actually the CRO. So it's unlockcro.com if you go to that. And if anyone needs CRO help, they can go there. But if they want Webflow development, yeah, I have a great team and they can come to internetgoods.co and use that.
I wish you all the best, and I wish you achieve goals for both these agencies that you're running, and probably onboard many more clients and big brands. Yeah,
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Sid.
great. It has been a pleasure talking to you, Marty. I really love the conversation, especially your insights that you added in terms of collaborating with designers and developers, and in terms of integrating your marketing strategies with CRO, and how these can help you in terms of improving the overall success of the CRO program. So I love the conversation, and I would love to host you sometime pretty soon for probably another session. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to join you again and speak more.
totally. Cool. Thanks, Marty. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you soon. Yeah.
Catch you. Thanks, Sid.
Yeah. See you. Take care. Bye bye.
Catch you.